Most plugins that you've ever used probably have some type of GUI menu similar to this one, and we're going to be recreating this exact same menu right here within this video. If you're new to Java, then you might struggle to follow along with my Minecraft tutorials. Don't worry though, I have a complete Java course that you can watch for free by signing up for a free trial of Skillshare. This course has around 50 videos and nearly 4 hours of content that are all designed for the beginner. So if you're new to Java, then this is the perfect place to start. Go ahead and click on the link in the description or in the pinned comment to sign up for free. So I can go into my commands folder, and I'm going to right click, make a new Java class, and I'm going to call this menu. Now within this class, I first have to implement command executor with a capital C and a capital E. And now we have to override the onCommand method. So I can say @override public boolean onCommand. And then here we have 4 different arguments. The first one is going to be the command sender, which I'll just call sender. Here we can have access to a command, which I will call command. We will have a string called label, and then a string array, which will be called argument. And for now, I'm just going to simply return true. Returning true means that everything went all right, and returning false means that something went wrong. Now within here, I first want to see if the sender is going to be the console or if it's going to be a player. So I could say if not, sender instance of player. And if this is the case, I now want to return true, and then I want to send a message to the sender telling them that only players can use this. So sender.sendMessage, I can now say only players can run this command. And now after this if statement, I know for sure that we are dealing with an actual player, so I can actually create a player object. So player equals the cast of player from sender. And now I can go ahead and create my inventory and open that inventory for this player. So for example, I can say inventory, I'll call it inv for short, equals bucket.create inventory. And here I want to pass in the inventory owner, which in this case will be the player. And now I want to add in a size, which has to be divisible by 9. So one thing I like to do is just do 9 times however. So in this case 3, and then I can just simply go in and change this 3 to 5 or 1 or however many rows I want. So I want 3 rows, so I'm going to say 9 times 3. But of course you could just add in 27 if you wanted to. And then here I'm going to add in the title or the name of the menu. And to make this easy, I'm going to create a private string at the top of our class. So I can say private string inv name equals server selector. Of course, you can name yours whatever you want. And then I'm going to pass in the inv name into the last argument here. And then underneath this, I can now say player.open inventory. And I can pass in our new inventory object. Now, of course, this would just be a blank inventory. So let's go ahead and make a method, which is going to allow us to easily format item stacks with color codes. So underneath onCommand, I can say private item stack. I can call this getItem. This will first take in an item stack, which I will call item. I'm going to have a string called name. And then the last argument here is going to be some var args. So I have the 3 dots here, and I'm going to call this lore. Now inside of this, I first want to gain access to the item meta, which is used to assign the name and also the lore on the strings. And the lore is going to be the text underneath the actual item name, such as click to play, as you see underneath these 3 items. So the very first step is to gain access to the item meta. I can say item meta equals item.getItem meta. And then here I can now say meta.setDisplayName, which is going to take in a string, which is going to be the actual name of the item. In this case, I want to translate all the different color codes within the given string. So I can say chatColor.translate color code, and this will first receive a character, which is going to be the color code identifier. In most cases, you're probably familiar with an and symbol, and then we have to pass in the actual name of the string. In this case, that is name. Now afterwards, I'm going to create a list, which is going to be a list of strings, and I'm going to call this lores, and I'm going to assign this equal to a new array list. Now my goal here is to loop through all the lore that is sent as our var args argument, and then add it into this after we translate the color code. So here I can say for string s lore without the s because this is referencing our argument. Then here I can say lores.add. I can now add in chatColor.translate color code, passing in the and symbol, and then s, which is the individual string. So now after that, we now have an array list of all the different lores. So we can now say meta.setLore, which as you can see here takes in a list of strings. So I can now pass in lores. And then very important, we have to set this meta back onto the item. So I can say item.setItemMeta and then pass in meta. And now I can return this item right here. So now that we have access to this, let's go ahead and add in a few items into our inventory. So here I can say inv.setItem. We're passing in an index, which is the actual slot. And real quick, I can go back into my server, and here we see the sword is on slot 11. This is slot 13, and then finally slot 15. So let's use the same exact ones here. So inv.setItem 11, and then here we can pass in getItem, which takes in an item stack. So I can create a basic item stack here, which is going to contain a diamond sword. And then after the item stack, I can add in a name, which is going to be and9 PvP. And then here we can add in any number of different strings we want, because of course, lore is a var args argument, meaning we can add in any number of them. So for example, I could say and a, which is a light green color, click to join. And then I can add in another string, which is going to say and a, battle it out in our PvP arena. Obviously, you can add in whatever you want. And now I'm going to copy this line 2 more times. So I can first change the actual slot for both of these. This will be slot 13 and slot 15. And now we want to change the item. So for the middle one, instead of a diamond sword, we're going to have a beacon. And for the last one, we're going to have a grass underscore block. Now the name for the middle one, instead of PvP, is going to be creative plots. And then the name for the last one is going to be Skyblock. Obviously, all of these are just examples. You can add in whatever items, whatever names, and whatever lores you want. Now for the creative plots text here, I can now remove all of this, make sure you still have and a, and this is now going to say weekly build competition. And then for Skyblock, we're going to delete everything, still include and a, and say, how long can you survive? Now, before we go ahead and detect what items the player is clicking on, let's first make sure that this command is actually registered. So I can go into my main class here, and here we see I'm registering my fly command. I'm going to do this in the same exact way. So I can say get command, passing in the word menu, which is going to be the command I want, dot set executor, and here I can pass in a new instance of my menu class. But of course, we need to add it into our plugin YML. So within commands, I can now say menu. I can add in a description, which is going to say opens a custom menu. Next, I can say the usage, which is just going to be /menu, and then I can go ahead and compile and try out my plugin. All right, so I'm now in the server and I can do /menu. And this will now open up our menu. Here we have our PvP, it says click to join, we have creative plots, and we have Skyblock, but at the moment, I can just click these and move them around wherever I want. That's because we're not telling the server to treat this menu as anything else other than just another inventory, such as an open chest. If this tutorial is helping you, then consider helping me by leaving a like, and if you want to get more tutorials like this one, then subscribe to the channel. It's free, and you can unsubscribe at any time. So the first thing to do is make this class not only implement command executor, but also implement listener. We can separate these with a comma, and then I'm going to create a constructor. So I can say public menu. And within here, I want to register all the events within this class. So I can say buckets.get plugin manager.register events. And this takes in a listener, which is what we have in this class, as well as a plugin. So here I can pass in this, but we now need access to a plugin. So I'm going to expect an instance of our main class to be passed in. In my case, that is wornoffkeys tutorial, and I'm going to call this plugin, and then I can pass this in right here. And of course, in order to do this, we have to go into our main class where we're registering our command and actually pass in an instance of the wornoffkeys tutorial class. So now we can go back into the menu and all the events should now be registered. So let's go ahead and register one by saying @event handler public void on inventory click. You can name your methods whatever you want, but I prefer the syntax. And then here we can pass in the inventory click event. And I'm going to call this parameter event. Now the very first thing to do is make sure that this event is fired for the actual server selector inventory. And we're going to use the env name right here, which we created earlier in order to determine that. So I can say if not event.getView.getTitle.equals, I can now pass in the env name I now want to return. Basically saying if it doesn't equal this, I want nothing to do with this because they're clicking on a different inventory. Meaning that after this if statement, we now know for sure that we are clicking on the actual inventory for this menu. So the very first thing I want to do is say event.setCanceled true. And this will make it so we can't actually click the items and move them around. It will keep the items in the menu, which you're probably used to on most public servers. Now, what you want to do after that is mostly going to be determined on your own use case. But for example, here I can say player equals cast of player event.get who clicked. And then I can say int slot equals event.getSlot. And now we can check to see what slot was clicked and do something with the actual player. But this should be the very basics of creating a simple inventory system because now we have the ability to do something with the player depending on what item they actually clicked on. Do you want to learn even more about Minecraft plugin development? Go ahead and click on this playlist you see here. And if you have any video requests, feel free to leave them in the comments.